It's so tasty, too.
The happiest moment, I suppose, was the baby show.
Ricky, this is it.
This is it.
One of them invented the way every sitcom you've ever watched gets made. One of them dropped dead on Hollywood Boulevard and nobody stopped walking. The woman America thought was a ditzy redhead became the first woman to run a major Hollywood studio. And the child actor who played their son? He blew through his entire trust fund and ended up in a church basement begging God to kill the cravings. Stay with me. Desi Arnaz, the Cuban who outfoxed Hollywood. Desiderio Alberto Arnaz Ideacha III. Born March 2nd, 1917 in Santiago de Cuba. 34 when the most-watched show in American history premiered. Before any of it, the 3-camera setup he invented.
How's about giving me a nice big kiss?
The rerun empire, the studio that would produce Star Trek. Desi was a 16-year-old refugee. His family lost everything in the Cuban Revolution of 1933. The money, the ranch, the name. He arrived in Miami and cleaned bird cages for a living. Bird cages. CBS told Lucy no. An American woman married to a Cuban with an accent? In 1951? They called it a mixed marriage.
After all, the same face, night after night. It's pretty tiresome.
Said audiences wouldn't buy it. So Desi and Lucy took a vaudeville act on the road, packed every theater, and came back with the receipts. The network shut up. Then Desi did something nobody in television had ever done. Filmed on 35mm, 3 cameras, live audience, a technique that did not exist before he built it. Every sitcom you've ever watched exists because a Cuban band leader told a room full of executives they were wrong. And in exchange for a pay cut, he kept the syndication rights.
You know, the only reason that women claim that housework is so hard is because they don't use their heads.
I guess so.
Nobody wanted them. Desi understood what nobody else could see. But behind the genius was a man drinking himself to death, womanizing, gambling, fights so loud the neighbors called police. Lucy filed for divorce in 1960. She kept the studio, he kept the bottle. He married Edith Mack Hirsch in '63. Quieter life, horses, a ranch. When Edith died of cancer in '85, something in him just went out. December 2nd, 1986. Lung cancer, 69.
So I found him, he was in New York, and I said, will you come down for a couple of days, just to kick this thing off, and then...
The last phone call he ever made was to Lucy. She couldn't stop crying. The Cuban kid who cleaned bird cages built a $20 million empire and spent his last breath on the woman he couldn't stay married to but never stopped loving. Lucille Ball, the woman nobody underestimates twice. Now, the other half of that phone call. Lucille Desiree Ball, born August 6, 1911 in Jamestown, New York. 40 years old when the show premiered. 40. In an industry already telling women they were done at 30.
Huh? Ricky just tried to kill me. Really? Then I'm a better fortune teller than I thought.
Before the slapstick, before the empire, Lucy was a 3-year-old being told her father was dead. Typhoid fever. She barely remembered his face. Shipped off to grandparents. Rheumatic fever at 15 paralyzed her legs for 2 years. 2 years in a bed, staring at a ceiling, being told she might never walk again. She walked. She danced. She clawed her way to Hollywood and spent 15 years being called a B-movie actress who'd never headline anything.
What does it mean? I'm not even cold yet, and Ricky's lining up girls to take my place.
Behind the zany redhead doing Chocolate Factory bits was the most ferocious perfectionist in the building. Did her own stunts, bruises up her arms every week. When she got pregnant in '52, CBS banned the word pregnant from being spoken on air. 44 million Americans watched the episode where little Ricky was born. More than watched Eisenhower's inauguration the next day. Let that satisfying number sink in. After the divorce, Lucy bought out Desi's share and ran Desilu herself.
Here, I have the bottle right here, Fred. It says Bulldog Cement.
First woman to run a major Hollywood studio. She greenlit Star Trek when every executive passed. The ditzy redhead had the best eye for talent in the building. One more show, Life with Lucy, 1986. Canceled after 8 episodes.
No wonder the lenses dropped out.
No.
Dropped out?
Oh.
Oh my gosh!
How does the funniest woman in America get told she isn't funny anymore? April 26, 1989. Ruptured aortic aneurysm, 77. The Desilu sale alone, equivalent of 164 million today. The woman who fought for rights nobody wanted ended up richer from reruns than anyone in television history. And the last person Desi called before he died? Her. Always her. William Frawley, the drunk who never missed his mark. William Clement Frawley, born February 26, 1887 in Burlington, Iowa. 64 years old when the show started, already a Hollywood veteran with 30 years of film credits, already a legendary drinker, already the kind of man studios warned each other about. He got the part because he picked up the phone and called Lucy himself. No agent, no audition, just, "I hear you're doing a show. I want to be the landlord." Desi hired the old man on the spot, but with a clause in the contract that nobody talks about. The 3 strikes rule. Show up drunk 3 times, and you're done. No warnings, no second chances, no appeal. Frawley never broke the rule, not once in 6 seasons. The heaviest drinker on the lot was the most reliable professional on the set. Wrap your head around that. But off camera, William Frawley was a man almost nobody could stand to be around. His hatred of Vivian Vance, and hers for him, was one of the worst kept secrets in television. He called her names that would end a career today. She told reporters she couldn't believe she had to play wife to a man 22 years older than her. The venom was real. The chemistry on screen was a miracle of acting so precise it fooled an entire country. Divorced once, no children, no close friends except Desi, who genuinely loved the old man and was one of the only people in Hollywood who did. After Lucy ended, Frawley landed My 3 Sons as Bub. Steady work, steady paycheck. He was 78 and still showing up on time. March 3rd, 1966. Walking down Hollywood Boulevard after seeing a movie. Heart attack. Dropped right there on the sidewalk. People kept walking. The most reliable man in sitcom history died on a public street, and the city just kept moving around him. The man CBS almost rejected for drinking turned out to be the one who never missed a single call time, and nobody stopped to help him when it mattered. But the woman who hated him on set? Her ending wasn't any kinder, and the reason she resented him goes deeper than anyone realized. Vivian Vance, the woman who hated being Ethel. Vivian Roberta Jones, born July 26, 1909 in Cherryvale, Kansas. 42 when the show started. A trained Broadway actress. Tony nominated. Beautiful. And she spent the next 6 years in a frumpy house dress playing second fiddle to a woman 3 years younger than her, married on screen to a man who openly despised her. How does a Broadway star end up resenting the role that made her immortal? Here's the thing most people don't know about Vivian Vance. She didn't want the part. Theater director Mark Daniels recommended her. Lucy didn't even know who she was. And the moment Vance walked on set, she understood the trap. Play Ethel Mertz well enough, and nobody would ever see Vivian Vance again. She was right. She won the first ever Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress, and for the rest of her life, strangers called her Ethel. The Frawley feud was a wound that never closed. He resented her comments about his age. She resented being paired with him at all. They performed warmth on camera and ice off it. 6 seasons of smiling through clenched teeth. 4 marriages for Vivian, no children. The last marriage, to John Dodds, was by all accounts the only happy one. She turned down a Fred and Ethel spinoff. Couldn't do it. Wouldn't carry that name one more day than she had to. Lucy loved her. That part was real. Their friendship survived the show, survived the feuds, survived everything. Vivian came back for the Lucy show, came back for specials, came back whenever Lucy asked. The woman who hated being Ethel kept being Ethel because the woman who played Lucy was the closest thing she had to family. Then came 1973, breast cancer. She fought it quietly, kept working, kept showing up. August 17th, 1979, metastatic breast cancer, 70 years old. Estate around $1 million. The Broadway-trained actress who resented the frumpy house dress won a historic Emmy doing it, and deserved the second act that never came. The disease made sure of that. And the child they all surrounded on that set, the little drummer boy America watched grow up in black and white, what happened to him after the cameras stopped is something nobody was prepared for. Keith Thibodeau, the kid they renamed. If you grew up watching I Love Lucy reruns, you remember Little Ricky. The drumming, the grin. But most people don't know the real name of the boy behind that face. Keith Thibodeau. Born December 1st, 1950 in Lafayette, Louisiana. Desi Arnaz told him to drop the name. Too Cajun, too hard to pronounce. So a 5-year-old became Richard Keith on a call sheet, and that fake name followed him for the rest of his childhood. He was a drumming prodigy touring at 3 years old. Desi and Lucy hired him because he looked exactly like their actual son. Behind that grin was a child performing for 40 million viewers before he understood what a viewer was. When the show ended, everything ended with it. The trust fund? $8,000, gone almost immediately. Then came the drugs, the depression, the years where TV's most famous kid was a teenager nobody recognized. He found a church, got clean, married Kathy Denton in 1976, still married 50 years later, built a ministry, wrote a book called Life After Lucy. In 2026, Keith Thibodeau is 75, the last surviving regular cast member. That trust fund was $8,000. The faith was free. Doris Singleton, the one who outlasted everyone. Here is a name that will test how well you actually know this show. Doris Singleton. Born September 28, 1919 in New York City, she played Caroline Appleby, Lucy's snooty, one-upping frenemy, starting in 1953. The kind of recurring guest who showed up often enough that your brain filed her away without ever learning her name. What you probably did not know is that Doris and Lucy were friends long before the show existed. They met on My Favorite Husband, the radio show, in 1948. Lucy brought her over to television like a keepsake she refused to leave behind. No scandals, no feuds, no dramatic arc. Doris Singleton just kept showing up on The Lucy Show, on specials, on anything Lucy made for over 30 years. She was the longest running thread in the entire Lucy universe, and almost nobody noticed her doing it. Married writer Charles Isaacs in 1941. He died in 2002. No children. June 26, 2012. Cancer complications. 92 years old. Lucy's on-screen rival turned out to be one of her most loyal real-life friends, and she outlived nearly every single person from the original cast. Sometimes the quiet ones go the farthest. Frank Nelson, the man behind the yes. You know the voice even if you have never once thought about the man who owned it. Frank Nelson. Born May 6, 1911 in Colorado Springs, Colorado, 40 years old when the show started. He played every exasperated salesman, hotel clerk, and bureaucrat that Lucy Ricardo ever tormented. And every single one of them greeted her the same way. That long, drawn-out, deeply irritated, yes? 5 letters, 1 facial expression, an entire career built on being annoyed. If you have ever seen a cartoon character do a sarcastic greeting to a customer, you were watching a Frank Nelson impression whether the animators knew it or not. Off camera, professional, cordial, 2 marriages, commercials, sitcoms, voice work. The kind of career that never makes a headline and never stops paying rent. September 12, 1986. Cancer. 75 years old. 3 months before Desi died. The man famous for one drawn-out word became the eternal template for every exasperated straight man in comedy history, and most people quoting him have no idea who they're quoting. Catherine Card, the mother nobody remembers. This one is for the deep cut fans, the ones who watch so many reruns they can hear the theme song in their sleep right now. Catherine Card. Born Catherine Rose Sheehan, October 4th, 1892 in Butte, Montana. She joined the show in 1954 at the age of 62 as Mrs. McGillicuddy, Lucy's scatterbrained mother. It was her first television role. 62 years old and walking onto the biggest set in America for the first time. Here is the detail that changes everything. Her own daughter died young in 1943. Catherine Card buried a child, and then spent a decade playing somebody else's mother on national television. If you're a parent, you know what that costs. If you're not, you can't imagine it. Married Irwin Card in 1910, a life that spanned horse-drawn carriages to satellite broadcasts. March 1st, 1964, heart attack, 71 years old. She died just as I Love Lucy reruns were beginning their eternal life. The mother who arrived late and left before anyone realized how permanent the show would become. Charles Lane, the man who worked for 76 years. If you watched any American television between 1930 and 2006, you saw this face. You just never learned the name attached to it. Charles Lane. Born Charles Gerstle Levison, January 26, 1905 in San Francisco. He was Lucy's favorite scowling authority figure, the tax man, the inspector, the bureaucrat with the clipboard and the permanent frown. He appeared across I Love Lucy, the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, and The Lucy Show. Anywhere Lucy needed someone to glare at her with bureaucratic disapproval, Charles Lane was the call. But here is the number that should stop you. Charles Lane's acting career spanned 76 years. He worked with Lucy, he worked with the Marx Brothers, he worked on Petticoat Junction and the Beverly Hillbillies, and shows your parents watched before you were born. Married Ruth Covell in 1931. She died in 2002. 2 children. A life so stable it reads like fiction by Hollywood standards. July 9th, 2007. Natural causes. 102 years old. The curmudgeon Lucy loved to torment outlived every single person he ever shared a screen with. 102. That might be the greatest punchline any character actor ever delivered. Mary Jane Croft, the friend who buried her son. You have seen her face 100 times and never once looked up her name. That changes now. Mary Jane Croft. Born February 15th, 1916 in Muncie, Indiana. She started on Lucy's radio show, crossed over to the television series, and became the connective tissue of the entire Lucy universe, appearing in I Love Lucy, The Lucy Show, Here's Lucy, and the 1977 reunion special. Every incarnation, every decade, always there. And here is the part that changes how you watch every scene she's in. In 1967, Mary Jane Croft's son was killed in Vietnam. Her boy, gone. And she kept showing up on Lucy's sets, kept playing the cheerful neighbor, kept smiling on camera while carrying the kind of grief that rewrites a person from the inside out. How does a mother bury her only child and then walk onto a soundstage and be funny? That is the hardest performance in the history of this show, and no audience ever knew they were watching it. 2 marriages, 1 son, the one she buried. August 24th, 1999. Natural causes. 83 years old. Lucy's radio friend became her television neighbor, then her recurring co-star, then one of the last people standing from the original orbit. She showed up for every version of Lucy that ever existed, and the grief she carried never once touched the work. The Mayer twins, the babies who got out clean. Last one, and I saved them for last because this is the part of the I Love Lucy story that nobody ever tells, and it is the only ending that doesn't hurt. Before Keith Thibodeau, before Richard Keith, before the drumming and the grin and the trust fund and the church basement, there were 2 babies. Joseph and Michael Mayer, born June 26, 1952 in Los Angeles. Identical twins. They played Little Ricky from 1953 to 1955 when the character was still an infant. The most famous baby in America was actually 2 babies, and almost nobody watching had any idea. They were paid $150 per episode. $150. They got to keep the wardrobe. That was the entire deal. Here's what happened to the Mayer twins after the show ended. Nothing. And that nothing is the most remarkable ending in this entire story. Joseph graduated high school in 1970, attended Cal Poly, went on an LDS mission to Japan, got married, had a family, went into the printing business. Michael did roughly the same. Quiet lives, private lives, no addiction, no tabloids, no comeback attempts, no bitterness, no Hollywood therapist, no memoir called My Life After Lucy. In 2026, both Joseph and Michael Mayer are 73 years old, alive, anonymous, happy. The real-life twins who played television's most famous baby walked away from Hollywood before they were old enough to remember being in it, and built lives so normal, so deliberately ordinary, that they might be the only people in this entire story who got out clean. $150 an episode, and a life nobody tried to take from them. Sometimes that is the happy ending. So that is the I Love Lucy cast, then and now, and the I Love Lucy tragedies the laugh track never let you hear. What happened to the cast of I Love Lucy after the cameras stopped is darker, stranger, and more human than 75 years of reruns ever prepared you for. Where are they in 2026? Keith Thibodeau, the last regular cast member standing, is 75, still here, still carrying the name they took from him. The Mayer twins, 73, alive and invisible. Everyone else is gone. Lucy, Desi, Frawley on the sidewalk, Vivian in the cancer ward. The laugh track kept playing long after the laughter stopped. Which one hit you the hardest? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.